Welcome to the Savvy Leader Podcast, the place for growth, learning, and inspiration for leaders just like you. I'm your host, Kristen Gallatin, and each week we will dive into the grit, grace, and gratitude it takes to become the savvy leader you were always meant to be. Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Savvy Leader Podcast today. I'm your host, Kristen Gallatin. I'm really glad that you're here. I'd like to dig into a topic that we introduced last month in the Fear and Overcoming audio journal. I touched on public speaking, and today I want to talk about that, but more broadly, I'd like to talk about communication as a whole. What I'd really like to do is reframe this from a source of such anxiety for so many of us to a great source of influence for us. In last month's episode, I shared a little bit about my story. Today, I want to build on that foundation to give you tools and ideas and resources to become a compelling and authentic communicator. To do that, we're going to zoom out from the stage to talk about communication in our daily lives and more generally. Because honestly, these principles are just as crucial in a tense team meeting, a simple text message, or even an email exchange with a client or boss. It's not about speaking in front of an audience all the time. This is about honing really savvy communication skills for every interaction. The very foundation of communicating begins with listening. Active listening isn't a new concept, but it is a skill that's most necessary when it's the hardest to actually accomplish. Because when you find yourself passionate about a topic or in disagreement with what someone is saying, you'll be formulating a response before the other person is even finished talking. And that means there's a 100% chance you're not listening at all. And listening is about truly hearing the other person's perspective. It opens the door for a more meaningful exchange. Listening requires patience and your full attention. Ouch. I know that is as hard as it sounds. And if you do find yourself in a disagreement, you need to make sure that you're as engaged as you possibly can be to what the other person is saying. Because when it comes time for you to respond, you want to be able to respond respectfully and articulate enough that you're addressing their specific concerns or details of their message accurately. Because without that crucial step, you're going to find yourself in a heated exchange that ends in a huff with a whole bunch of hard feelings. I mean, how many times have you sat there and explained your position only to have someone respond out of left field that had nothing to do with what you were trying to get across? It's so frustrating. So what that means, though, is focusing on the person that's speaking, even if you disagree. That is key, because then you have the necessary information you need to formulate a proper response with empathy. Because in order for you to be heard, you must first hear and then take the time to communicate your response accordingly by putting yourself in someone else's shoes and at least attempting to understand their perspective, and then responding with genuine compassion. You're going to be able to find that common ground, even in disagreement, I promise. But whether you're speaking or writing, you have to be clear. You've got to be clear. You can't assume people understand where you're coming from. They may not work in your industry. They don't live inside your head, that's for sure. So you've got to take the time to really expand on your message, start from the beginning, really articulate all of the information you wish to convey. And if this is in an email, you got to use complete sentences, full details. Don't take the shortcuts. You can use AI, though, to help with this, because AI is really, really good at putting together the information in an easily digestible way by the person on the receiving end. But stop making assumptions when you're speaking with someone. They don't always know where you're coming from, so you got to start from the beginning. Your goal is to make sure that your message is so easy to understand that it requires zero extra effort from the recipient. That is how you're going to avoid misunderstandings and confusion for sure. Effective communication is all about putting yourself in someone else's shoes. It's about empathy, truly understanding their emotions and their needs, and then responding with genuine compassion. Think of it this way. Empathy is caring about what someone you care about cares about. Another person way smarter than me came up with that, and I'm going to run with that. I hope you're okay with that. But anyway, this idea of empathy ties directly into one of the most powerful communication skills you can have, and that is adaptability. Think of this as your secret weapon. It's literally the ability for you to adjust your communication style to fit any situation or audience. After all, assuming that you can step into a room of people or have a one-to-one conversation and speak with the same tone and style isn't going to work, right? So for example, let's say you're talking to a busy executive. You're going to get straight to the point, you've got a few key bullets, and then you both are going to move on with your day. But if you've got a new client, you're probably going to use more patience, provide extra details, and make sure that the understanding is there. Same goes for tailoring your language and your style of speaking. By failing to adapt to your specific audience, they will reward you with immediate disengagement, for sure. And adaptability isn't just something you can prepare for one time, though. It's an ongoing process. As you learn, you're going to get better, but you're going to keep adjusting. You need to learn how to watch your audience and look for both verbal and nonverbal cues. Are they nodding, smiling? Do they look confused? Or are they leaning in or checking their phones? These are signals that tell you when to clarify, elaborate, or move on to keep everybody engaged. Flexibility and responsiveness are key. If your audience looks lost, provide an extra example. Rephrase a key point or ask a question to help get them back on track. All the while, you're maintaining eye contact to help you read those individual reactions and then adjust on the fly. Sounds like a lot. It is. It takes practice, but I know you can do it. I believe in you. And when you get to that point, you're going to find that you're going to have far better interactions with people, and your conversations are going to be way more dynamic, providing a positive experience on both sides. In my corporate training gig, I found myself to be a pretty good, effective funnel of information because I took boring corporate instructions and funneled it into easily digestible action steps for my teams to execute. Okay, note, I was also able to put teams together of people that had similar backgrounds and skill sets. Say, how about a group of people from the same department or of the same age? So in doing so, I was able to use kind of the same funnel to share the information. It was a lot easier for me, and I also had a far better experience on their end because they were all receiving it in a similar way. What about text messaging, though, you might ask? How can text messaging play into your professional life? Your personal life is one thing. You do you. I'm not going to touch on that at all. But when it comes to texting in professional settings, you got to recognize that texting is so preferred by so many, even though it can be so ineffective in so many ways. Don't even get me started on how often a person's tone can be misconstrued in a text, forcing us to overcompensate with fluffy words and smiley faces so that we don't sound too snarky or short, even though that was kind of the concept of text messaging, short messages. Anyway, I don't typically advise texting if you can avoid it, especially lengthy paragraphs. Please, no. There are a couple things that I like to use texting for, though. One is to send out a quick heads up after sending an email that has pertinent information or details, even action steps in it, to make sure the other person received it and that they're watching for it. I also love to use text messaging when I'm setting up a meeting. And the reason for this is because I get to not only say, hey, do you want to get together for a chat, whether it be in person or online, I also get to put a brief topic detail in there so that not only will they be able to prepare for it before we meet, but when they're choosing dates and times to meet with me, it's going to be appropriate to what it is we're talking about. Let's touch on tone again for just a moment and the importance of word choices. Remembering that your tone conveys emotion means you must match it to your purpose. So an enthusiastic and uplifting tone works great for a motivational speech, while a more serious tone is better for, say, a tax audit. The language you use should complement the tone and appeal to your audience at the same time. These are both key players in all written and verbal communication. Tone, language, style, all of it plays in. And like I said, practice, practice, practice. But by tailoring your communication, you're going to show respect for your audience's needs, which in turn is going to build trust and makes your message and you more credible. Okay, now that we've gotten through some of the basic logistics about communication, let's move into public speaking and presenting in front of an audience. First, though, before we do that, I have this confession I have to make. I still get nervous before every speaking engagement. It doesn't matter if there's 5 or 500 people in person, online. Even if all I have to do is introduce someone, I choke almost every time, literally. That knot in my stomach, it's absolutely real. But here's what I've learned, and this is what I want to share with you today. It's not about battling the fear. It's about shifting that same energy. There was a very specific shift in my perspective during my corporate training days, and I touched on it last month. It literally flipped the switch for me from nervous Nelly to confident, approachable speaker. I realized after a number of trainings and classes that I was spending so much energy battling these fears about how would I be perceived, or how did I look, or what was I wearing. I wasn't spending enough time on the actual value that I was bringing. I realized then that my job wasn't to be a flawless performer. It was to deliver something truly valuable. And why is that? Why did I come to that conclusion? Because I don't believe in wasting anyone's time. I don't. Not mine, especially not anyone else's, not yours. And that mantra right there, that was what did it for me. My sheer distaste for wasting time. Who's got time to waste these days anyway? It outweighed my fears. And when that switch flipped, my entire approach completely changed. My focus snapped from, am I good enough, to, is this message good enough? Better yet, how can I make the message even better? How can I engage my audience? How can I funnel this dull information in such a way that it reaches them even in the deepest, darkest depths of their cell phone? This fundamental shift is at the very core of what I want to share with you today. Think about your message as a gourmet meal, and you're preparing it for your audience, whether that's one person or 1,000. Are you going to obsess over the fancy garnish, or are you going to perfect the recipe and use the freshest ingredients? The answer is so obvious, you guys. Your content is the main course, not the chef. So how is it that we can make the content the star? How do we allow ourselves to personally retreat from the spotlight and put the content up front? Well, before you write even one single word, you have to ask yourself the most important question of all, and that's why. Why is this information so crucial? Why are you so damn passionate about it? And don't settle for the first answer that pops in your head. Don't. You got to keep asking yourself why until you reach the core of the truth you plan to share. Let's reflect on that for just a moment. You know, it's like looking for a whole new, never before seen self-development concept or process. It doesn't actually exist. What does exist are millions and millions of variations of them. These variations come about because of new trends in the world, new perspectives and ideas about truths that have been with us since the dawn of time. The real power isn't in discovering a new truth. It's in the fresh perspective of an old truth. Your job is to find your unique angle and then make it resonate. What part of the story are you uniquely qualified to tell? And how does this old truth show up in your life, your work, and your unique perspective? Think of it like a musician. There are only a handful of musical notes, but countless songs have been written. The magic is in the unique combination of the notes, the rhythm, and the emotion that the artist pours into it. Your message is the same. It's not about the notes. It's about your song. It's about how your personal story, your professional failures and successes, and your deep-seated passion come together to create a version of a universal truth that only you can deliver. That authenticity is what connects with people on a soul deep level. Let's do a mini exercise together quick. Grab a pen and paper if you can, or if you're driving, you can just visualize this. Think about a topic, something you're really passionate about, something you're actually busting at the seams to share with everyone you possibly can. Now write it down or visualize it inside your mind. Think about the first reason why you want to share it, and then ask, why is this so important anyway? Or better yet, why do people need to know about this? Or who needs to hear about this because it may very well change their life? And then keep going like a curious child until you uncover the raw, emotional core of your message. For example, let's say you want to talk about leadership. Why not? Your first why might be, well, because good leaders are important for a successful business. And that's a good start, but let's go deeper. Why are good leaders important for a successful business? Well, that's because they create a positive work environment. Okay, great. And then why is that important? Because it reduces employee turnover and burnout. Right. And why then is that important? Because it allows people to feel safe, valued, and fulfilled in their work. Now you're really getting somewhere. You're no longer just talking about business strategy. You're talking about human well-being and fulfillment. That's the message that connects with your audience and moves people into action. Okay, you've dug really deep. You're getting your presentation together. You're going to include a catchy title, supportive images, personal stories even of how you have been impacted by knowing what you now know. You'll even have a few thought-provoking questions, ways to engage the audience, and a reflective conclusion. And then, just when you think you're done, I'm asking you to say to yourself, you can do better than that. That's right. That's what I said. And I can't take it back, and neither can you. I can't tell you how many times the statement popped in my head just as I was finishing a presentation deck, and then how much I dreaded it. Because it meant that I would have to go back to the very beginning. I would have to dig even deeper and muster even more energy and effort and find more research on all the content that I was putting out there. And why? Why is that? Because I realized in order to reach people, you need to take yourself one step further than most. To literally stand out from the crowd. You can do better than that. You know what everybody else is doing. You need to do a little bit better than that. That is one of my personal mantras, and it's what transforms a good message into an unforgettable one. It's a call to action to keep refining, keep polishing, and keep on digging until your content gleams. All of your energy must be used in the research and creation of the content and delivering the absolute best you possibly can, because, my friends, everyone loves being moved by another's passion. They do. Okay, you've got your content rock solid. Now it's time to fine-tune the delivery. The goal here is not perfection, but professionalism. We need to avoid anything that detracts from the message. All right, remember those visuals? They are there to support your content, not be the star themselves. They got to be good. They can't be too emotional, though. Your slides must be razor sharp. The image is compelling, and they do need to support your words. Rule of thumb, 5 words or less per slide, seriously. If you've got detailed stats or complex information, put them on a concise one-pager and hand it out, or send it to the audience in a digital format. This is going to keep the audience locked into you and your insights, not squinting at tiny text, or worse yet, reading the slides. Next, I encourage you to record yourself speaking. I know this sounds really painful if you haven't done it before, but it's one of the very best things you can do. You're going to catch mannerisms, fidgets, and verbal tics that you didn't even know you had. Maybe you play with your hair, or maybe you say a lot more than you realized, or maybe you pace back and forth. You know, I've done that and I got terrible feedback on it because it was such a distraction. So like I said, you're not looking for perfection. You're just looking for another way to refine your delivery so it doesn't get in the way of your powerful message. Because your delivery matters, practice projecting confidence through your demeanor and tone of voice. This will build credibility and ensure your message lands with real impact. Above all, be authentic and honest in your interactions. Your genuine self builds trust and strengthens your communication far more than any polished performance ever could. Often, I still catch myself saying things like, why would anyone want to hear what I have to say anyway? It's that little voice of doubt, the one that whispers, you're not an expert. You don't have a PhD in this. Who are you to speak on that? A good friend of mine calls that little gremlin on your shoulder a spicy nacho. And it's that spicy nacho when they're chirping in your ear that doesn't help you or anyone else. But here's the thing. You didn't just stumble upon this message yesterday. You found something you believe in. You believe in its power, and you have an unshakable urge to share it with the world. You've done the work. You've dug really, really deep, and you've found a new way to articulate an old truth. That, my friend, is your passion. And there is no one in the world who doesn't love to feel moved by another person's passion. Your vulnerability, your conviction, your desire to share something you believe in, that is magnetic. And it's what connects you to your audience on a human level. It transcends the perfect slide deck or the flawless vocal tone. It's what makes you memorable. So when that spicy little nacho tries to derail you, don't argue with it. You don't have to convince yourself you're perfect or an expert. Instead, redirect that energy. Remind yourself it's not about you. It's about your message and your passion. Resting in that is the ultimate confidence booster because you're no longer focused on your own performance. You're focused on serving your audience with something you genuinely believe will make their lives better. This shift in focus from self-doubt to service, from performance to passion, it's what transforms communication from a source of anxiety to a source of incredible influence. And here's the best kept secret of all. The content will be the star, but you will be the one remembered for it. When you commit to powerful content, you're not just communicating, you're influencing, you're inspiring, and you're leaving a legacy. Your passion for the message becomes a part of the experience, and it's your passion that they will recall long after that presentation is over. Thank you for joining me today. I'm so glad that you did. Don't forget to try the why exercise and a simple video test this week. I promise it won't kill you. Let's start transforming our communication from a source of anxiety to our greatest source of influence. Take care. See you next time. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Savvy Leader Podcast. Be sure to check the description below for any links or resources we mentioned today. And for even more inspiration and tools to help you on your own leadership journey, come on over and join the conversation in the Savvy Leaders Lounge. That's savvyleaderslounge.com. And we'll see you next time.